So I've been telling a few people, or a lot of people, like trying to say the value of of meditation, and a lot of people probably don't quite see the value of it because of our Western society teaching, of just really left brain logical type thinking. And some people really need to see the logic behind some of this stuff to really get it. And I know that's kind of how it was with me. So I just want to try to throw a few ideas that have come to me out and share them, and maybe it'll help kind of make some more sense of this to some people that maybe will open their eyes to seeing the meditation really has a lot more value than meets the eye. They say we're a three-dimensional shadow of our four-dimensional selves, and it's like how do you exactly come across that, or how do you quantify that idea? And an easy way to kind of look at that, to put a thought experiment together of like what that means, is you can think about how you as a three-dimensional person here living in this reality, when you cast a shadow on the ground, you're casting a two-dimensional shadow on a flat surface depending on the angle that the light's hitting you and whatnot. So the light, a higher dimensional source of light is now casting a three-dimensional shadow that has, a lot more different layers and dynamics to it. And that sounds crazy, but then you're like, well, it's pretty well accepted science and physics and whatnot that everything that you see is all just a bunch of tiny little particles and waveforms and energy moving around essentially. And the physical dense nature of everything is completely like an illusion. It's a forces repelling against each other. It's not actual physical material. It's like if you were to take all the physical material out of say the Empire State Building, all the empty space out of the atoms that make up the Empire State Building, the actual physical matter that was left would be like the size of a car. It's like there's nothing that would stop a body from being able to walk through a wall, other than obviously that if you walk into a wall you're going to hit it, and it's just a matter of the forces at play. But so we're obviously in this dense reality, or this perception of this dense reality, but it's made up of something that's completely not dense at all. It's like, so there's this kind of disconnect there between what really is and isn't. And so a few of these thought experiments, like the one I just threw out there with the three-dimensional and the two-dimensional shadows, can kind of help us to bridge these gaps that are from the known to the unknown. And so here's one that I've kind of has made my mind kind of expand a little bit, is I think about how like on a computer we can simulate a 3D world with zeros and ones. Computers work completely in binary, right? All zeros and ones. You can make a 3D environment on a computer that basically looks exactly like what we're walking in right here. Well, there's also an interesting little number pattern that's kind of hidden in our reality of doubling. If you double, that's the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, which if you double 1 you get, and actually it's better to do it, you want to write this out kind of in a way to let you really visualize this. Whoops. 3 does not come after 2, or after 1. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so if you double 1, you get 2. If you double 2, you get 4. If you double 4, you get 8. If you double 8, you get 16. But so when you get digits like this, you break them down to what's called their digital root. So 16 goes to 1 plus 6, which equals 7. Okay, so 16 doubled equals 32. So again, 3 plus 2 equals 5. So let's see. So we're 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, and then 32 doubled is 64. So 64 equals 6 plus 4, which equals 10, which equals 1 plus 0, which equals 1. So we're back to 1. 64 doubled is 128, which again we get 11, which 1 plus 1 is 2, then 256. So this pattern goes on in either direction. If you don't believe me, you can do the math. You can divide 1 by 2 and you get 0.5. You divide 5 by 2 again, you get 0.25, and so on and so forth. So this pattern of 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, that's kind of hidden in our number system that we never learn about is like really kind of an interesting one that represents something interesting. So if you have it written out to this, you go 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. And you notice this kind of interesting little pattern that emerges that you might have seen, but you notice that the 6 and the 3 never show up in there. And so this is all pertaining to the way the energy works and everything as well, because we're talking about how everything's made out of energy and electrons. The whole system of everything is just particles interacting. But anyway, so this, if you kind of think about this pattern, you can think of that this 3 and 6 never show up, but if you double 3 you get 6, if you double 6 you get 12, 12 double, which 1 plus 2 is 3, 12 doubled is 24, which 2 plus 4 is 6, 24 double is 48, which 4 plus 8 is 12, which 1 plus 2 is 3, 48 double is 96. So this pattern of 3 and 6 oscillating back and forth, they're kind of like the poles of a magnet. So you can kind of think about bringing this together. It's like, because I talked about how we create this a 3D world with zeros and ones in a computer, which is binary. Well, this kind of represents electromagnetism. These are like the poles of a magnet, the 3 and the 6, because they oscillate back and forth. And we create electricity by the oscillating, or the movement of electric current through moving the electrons through a space. And you can kind of think of the electrical current as this number pattern going through here. As the 3 and the 6 oscillate back and forth, they generate this electrical current, which this represents a vortex in the toroidal field that we each have. But it's just a really interesting number pattern that's hidden in our reality that we don't really learn about, that kind of represents the electromagnetic energy that surrounds us and really creates not only us but everything, because it's an infinitely like self-repeating and like proliferating type thing. But there's videos out there that can go into a lot more depth onto this subject, and I would recommend doing a little bit more research on it. But I'm just putting out there to kind of explain some of these ideas that I've had to kind of bridge these gaps of why meditation and stuff is actually important. So anyways, we got this kind of hidden number pattern in our real world right here that is essentially creating the physics necessary for us to experience everything. Essentially, that you see is that the 9 never shows up in this pattern. So they say 9 is the master number. It's got some really unique things about it, where it's kind of really similar to 0 in a lot of ways, but the 9 is more of an infinite number and 0 is nothingness. But anyway, if you add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that equals 45, which 4 plus 5 equals 9. If you add the 9 to that, you get 54, which is 9 again. So it's kind of, 9 doesn't ever show up in this repeating pattern of 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, or the oscillation of 3 and 6, but it equals all these numbers at once. Now the interesting thing too is if you add any number to 9 and then break it down to its root digit, the 9 disappears. So 9 plus 3 is 12, 1 plus 2 is 3. So the 9 kind of cancels itself out. 9 plus 8 is 17, 1 plus 7 is 8. So 9 has some really unique properties, kind of how a 0 does, which again, whoop-de-doo, we're just talking numbers, but it's kind of wrapping your mind around this idea that there's something hidden below the surface that's creating this reality. And this all boils down to the importance of our thoughts and why meditation actually is a more powerful practice than might meet the eye from our really closed box programming of how we perceive things. So anyway, we've got this hidden pattern here. So why do I meditate on like pi and phi, like these number symbols and what they are? So I think of pi as it's a delicious treat for one. Pumpkin pie is probably the best, and don't forget the whipped cream. But pi as a symbol, anyway, is also really kind of a crazy thing, because It's the ratio between the diameter of a circle and the circumference. So pi is a really, we can't get to the edge of pi. We don't know the last number of it. It's 3.1415926535, whatever, you know. And it goes on for like forever. And even though we don't know the edge of this irrational type number symbol, we can still use it to define a perfect circle. And so pi is the ratio between the diameter and the circumference. And so that's like saying, even though we don't have a perfect explanation of pi, we can create a perfect circle. And that's kind of like our mind. We're comprised of mind, body, and spirit, okay? So our body is like the one-dimensional line, and our spirit is like the circle. Pi is like our mind. That's like the bridge between the one-dimensional plane of our body and the three-dimensional plane of the circle, or, you know, the three-dimensional plane of our body and the four-dimensional plane of whatever. But anyway, it's where we have numbers kind of hidden in our reality in such a way they can be used to kind of quantify things about ourselves, to understand deeper things about the irrational nature of our own existence, and how it could be something infinite, something so perfect and complete as it is, but still expanding and kind of have infinite potential in it. And so my thought is, you know, the more that we kind of develop our mind and understand these aspects of ourselves, the greater the higher degree we've calculated out pi, essentially, and the more refined and perfect our circle will be able to be. If we only use pi from 3.14 to calculate the circle is not going to be quite as perfect. But if we calculate pi out to the 100th digit to determine what the circumference of our circle is, it's going to be a lot more precise and a lot more close to a true and perfect circle. So that's kind of why I think about how I think about pi in that way in terms of meditation. Now, when you add that also to the phi, the Greek letter, but which represents the Fibonacci sequence, which the Fibonacci is kind of like the Earth's version of, or it's the material version of trying to represent phi, of the etheric number, and the irrational, the 1.618033999, and that goes on forever as well. But that's a self-repeating spiral or a self-similar spiral that goes out, the spiral of life, essentially. And so that's also a number that we don't know the end of, but also it creates life. So there's something in my mind to conjoining meditating on the symbol of pi, which is just knowing the symbol holds so much power in it, and phi together. I think of myself and my own consciousness as an expanding spiral of awareness, and that each stage of that spiral, I can refine my awareness of everything available at that stage for me to be aware of, depending on how much I want to develop the link of my mind, the awareness of pi and my oneness with everything, despite all the appearances on the surface of this disconnected, dense material nature of everything. And so, anyway, yeah, this is starting to get a little long, and some of this stuff probably is kind of out there, and it's hard to really put into coherent words to make it make sense like it does in my mind. But the last thing I add to it a little bit once in a while is also the Ankh of reincarnation. For whatever reason, these three symbols kind of make sense to me as having some kind of unique power between the three of them, because we've got the self-similar, ever expanding spiral of phi, which basically could go on forever, and then we can have the infinitely refining stages of pi at each stage along that refining spiral. And then I think about the Ankh, it's like maybe on each stage of the spiral we might go as far as we want in that journey before our body dies, and then we can put our consciousness in another body, forget it all, and do it all over again and enjoy the fun. Because, you know, as an infinite being of consciousness that could really know everything of the universe, what's the fun of knowing everything if you can't kind of forget about it all and enjoy the process of remembering what it's all about? So anyway, yeah, that's I really wanted to get those ideas out there about the numbers, the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5, and how it relates to like electromagnetism and energy, because this all boils down to what we are at our deepest levels. And I think you don't need to fully necessarily understand this stuff like or dig into it super deep, but if you just knowing the number pattern and kind of having an awareness of what it might be will add so much magnetic power to your thoughts and your manifesting powers, I believe. And I think it really unlocks some keys to our potential that have been hidden from a lot of us. And, I mean, they're still hidden from me, and I'm trying to find them. So, if you find something, feel free to share it, because that's what I'm trying to do.